Who stays, who goes, and can the Flames integrate new and young, fresh talent into the blue line?
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. Well, I hope you're all having a fantastic day today because I thought that we would take time to look at the Flames' depth at the blue line. I think that there are a number of options and roads the Flames could go down. But I guess first it comes down to thinning out the blue line and figuring out what is the most realistic option for them to do with so many options, as well as young players like Hunter Brzustewicz and Zayne Parekh. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And let's dive right into this. So what got me thinking was, of course, Rasmus Andersson, right? Because biggest story of the offseason so far is, has he played his final game as a Flame? And most people are saying yes. And I think anyone with eyes and ears that watched or listened to his exit day interview would agree. And, thanks so much for the last 10 years and your, first chunk of your career. But sometimes it's just, it's time to go. But you know that they can upgrade too, right? It's not a matter of what they need to do because it's very clear. And while there is a little bit of a log jam, I think it makes the most sense to start weeding players out one way or another and, start integrating a lot of these younger guys. But let's take a look at the main depth, I guess, right now, right? So you have Andersson, who is on an expiring contract, as well as Kevin Ball, who is a restricted free agent. And then you move down to the second pairing and you have Mackenzie Weegar, who's obviously on a long-term deal, Miramonov, who has 1 year left, and Joel Hanley, who is walking right into free agency, and Braden Pahal and Jake Bean as your fifth and sixth defensemen. Both of those players still have a year on their contract. I think that when you look at this group, you know that it is a considerable downgrade from where you were with Chris Tanev and Noah Hanifin, right? And I mean, it's not a knock on the current players. It's just the truth of the caliber of talent you lost. Having two true shutdown defensemen in Weegar and Tanev in your lineup, like, you are immediately setting yourself up for success there. Like, there's not much you can argue there. But you also signed Tyson Barrie. That the Tyson Barrie experiment went about as well as expected, I would say. It was one of the classic Flames veteran signings. I would love if they could avoid those this summer. I think that there's enough bodies in-house within the Wranglers organization as well that you can avoid going that route. It's very obvious. I think really the biggest issue is going to be integrating these players because they want to get younger, they want to get faster, they want to get more competitive, but they don't necessarily want to give these guys a shot at the NHL level consistently, like to develop at the NHL level. He's a forward, but Rory Currens, he had 4 points in 4 games and then was sent right back down to the AHL. To me, that doesn't make sense. Like, that is a player that is off to a hot start in the NHL, and you should probably build off of that. But that's not what happened. And for a team that doesn't want to take a step back, but also wants to play the game of we need to get younger, we need to get, our young guys in, they don't the actions don't necessarily match up with what they say their goal is. And that's one of the most frustrating parts, I think, as a team that's in this transitional period. And it feels like the words, like they're saying one thing but doing another. And maybe that was just a this year thing. Maybe it was just kind of like let's just go with the more experienced players because you have Dustin Wolf and it's his first year. But at the end of the day, there are players that are going to, be better options. But coming up next, we are going to take a look at who goes and why they might go here on Locked On Flames. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. We've all been in a work environment or a situation where you need the right hire, like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback, and that's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Thanks everyone for tuning into today's episode of Locked On Flames and making Locked On Flames part of your busy day. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And I never like singling players out like this because it is really nothing personal. I'm sure these players are nice people. It is just my opinion and how I think the roster construction should maybe look moving forward, or what I would like to subtract to make room for other options. And I'm going to start right off the bat with Miromanov. He did not play well this year. And that's a bummer because I feel like he had taken, a lot of pride in his game last season after he had come over in the, was that the Noah Hannafin trade from Vegas? That sounds right. But either way, the setback was enough to get him taken out of the lineup. There were better options there, and he has 1 year left on his contract. And I think that this is a player you see moved. I think this is a player that you see kind of as an extra piece in a deal. I don't necessarily know if anyone is, I mean, you know what? Let me take that back, because their teams could very well be trading for depth defensemen. I don't know. I think it's a little bit easier to grab what's on the, open market, but that comes at a higher cost. So it all depends really what general managers are thinking. I mean, the fourth, or really like a fifth round pick maybe for him. But I think that freeing up that spot is the way to go. And then even if, you look at Uyghur's other defensive partner, Joel Hanley, I don't think Joel Hanley is coming back. I think that he did a great job, kind of showing Dallas what he could have been. But I think Dallas didn't need him to be that, because they had enough depth and talent there already that he was fine being a fifth or sixth or seventh defenseman, really. I don't think that Joel Hanley is a top 4 defenseman, but again, just someone who watches hundreds of hockey games this season. What do I know? I think that he's going to walk in free agency. I think that there will be a team that would love to have him. I think the Flames would like to have him too, but it feels like there are other options that they could go with in-house. Or maybe they bring him back in his assumed role as those depth, 6th and 7th defenseman roles. But not to be the bearer of bad news or stating the obvious, I guess. Rasmus Andersson. I think Rasmus Andersson is gone, whether it be this summer or before the deadline. I'm assuming it's in March. I don't see a world where he signs an extension with the Flames, and if he does, it's like a sign and trade sort of situation. I really have a hard time thinking that the Flames are going to let him dictate this situation the way that they did, let's say, with Noah Hanifin. I think that Rasmus Andersson, while he does have the respect of the organization, I think that they learned the first time from being too nice and letting the players hold all the cards. It really forces the Flames' hand and just doesn't end in the way it could or really should. I'd mentioned it earlier. I believe it was last month's one of the episodes where I talked about, trading Andersson. You're likely going to get a haul for him like you did with Elias Lindholm. You're going to get a roster player. You're going to get a high-end prospect and a draft pick, likely that first-round draft pick. I think the Flames got 2 prospects in that trade. So many of those trades happened all at once or in such a close proximity of time that I don't, it is very difficult to keep all the players and transactions straight. But, you got Andrei Kuzmenko, you got Hunter Brzustewicz, you got Yanni Yermo, and then you got a first round pick. That is a haul for Elias Lindholm, who was a rental for half the season at that point. And I do wonder if the Flames, say a trade happens in before the draft, like leading up to the draft. Is the Flames asking price going to be a little bit higher because you get a full season? Maybe. I think that really, if you're looking for a top 4 defenseman that can quarterback your power play, hello, Rasmus Andersson is right there. And I hope that he does bounce back, regardless of if he comes back as a Flame or not. I think that it's there. I think that, there were a number of reasons this year. I remember saying it in like an early September episode. Rasmus Andersson was likely going to have a down year, I don't want to say bad year, but a difficult year because of the preseason events. As outside circumstances play a big role into on-ice performances. How many of us go to work dealing with things and it just like we can't stop thinking about it, or it gets in the way of us completing tasks? Or you know how many times I'm multitasking throughout the day at work, making sure I call this doctor to make sure I have this appointment set up, or did I remember that to send flowers to my mom for Mother's Day? Did my brother get his birth? Like, there are things that real life impacts on ice play. And I want Rasmus Andersson to bounce back the same way that I wanted to see Sean Monahan bounce back this year. And he did in Columbus, and similar circumstances, right? But I think you're not seeing Rasmus Andersson. I don't think you're seeing him in the opening night lineup. And we can come back and revisit this in September. The last week of September, okay? If I'm wrong. But I just don't think you're seeing Tyson Barrie back. I don't think you're seeing Joel Hanley back. I don't think you're seeing Andersson. You may be able to trade Miromanov or throw him as an addition in the trade and say, please do something with him. You never know. It's not like the Flames need to clear cap space or anything of the sorts. So the ball really is in their court, and I hope that they take advantage of that. But coming up next, we are going to talk about some adjustments that need to happen in order to see players like Jeremie Porier, Hunter Brzustewicz, and Zayne Parekh in the Calgary Flames defensive lineups. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Me too. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is super easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, and you can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you just stop just managing your money, but actually start building wealth. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. And you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto. One of the more frustrating parts of looking at this depth chart is knowing that Jeremie Porier has not made his NHL debut. He is a fantastic defenseman with the Wranglers. He suffered a very scary injury, not this past season, but the season before, where people really weren't sure if he was going to play hockey again. He ended up getting a blade, like a skate, like sliced his wrist pretty bad. Like the player stepped down on it. And he didn't realize how bad it was at first. And then him and one of the coaches like looked down and saw all the blood, and they were like, oh. And it was just like never talked about again either. like never talked about. I forget which member of the coaching staff it was, but they talked about how like it was such like a gory and traumatic like injury what they saw, that like it's just they don't talk about it. They didn't like revisit it or like hash it out, I guess. Not hash it out, but discuss it, which is terrifying because we see night after night what these players experience on the ice, and it's talked about, and it's just crazy. But that injury happened, and they weren't really sure if he was ever going to be able to play hockey again. Worked his way back and has been playing great. I really thought that at some point in the season we would have seen him get a call up. But no, because they have 52 seventh defensemen sitting in the press box. It was typically Miramonov, or it was Hanley, or it was, one of the other, or Barry, that got to see the ice time. And it's frustrating because, no offense to those guys, but Porier is probably going to be a little bit more impactful. And I'm looking at this, who we're plucking out of this lineup and who could we put in. And obviously, Jeremie Porier, Hunter Brzustewicz, and Zayne Parekh. I think that Parekh is absolutely going to be seeing NHL time. I have a very difficult time thinking that he is going to juniors because of there's so many silly rules and stipulations when it comes to young players on an ELC or that are in the CHL and whatnot. But Parekh can't play in the AHL next year due to his age. So it's either juniors back with the Saginaw Spirit or in the NHL. And then this is the dilemma that you run into, right? Do you want him to just sit in the press box if he's not, playing at this elite level, or if you don't necessarily want to slot him in immediately? But then at the same time, if you do that, he's missing out on consistent playing time in the OHL. So it really is a double-edged sword that I feel like it just needs to be addressed. It really puts a lot of these players in such like an unfortunate situation, because like either way, these players are missing out on development. And I think like having the in-between of the AHL right there would be great. I think that he would be an immediate upgrade over Jake Bean, Braden Pahal, Miramonov. I don't want to say Joel Hanley just yet, because I do feel like Hanley has his moments. And if he plays like he did towards the latter half of the season, then he does have a little bit of more room to grow. But Parekh just has the capabilities of making an immediate impact, as we saw in the game against Anaheim. Or it wasn't Anaheim. It was the Kings that they closed their season against. That's right. But regardless, I want to see Zayne Parekh, Jeremie Porier, and Hunter Brzustewicz in the Flames lineup. I think you're likely going to see Parekh more, just based off of, how his season went last year in the OHL, how his game went, and how his pre-tournament hockey is going at Worlds. And it's just a reminder that the Flames have to make these adjustments. They have to start integrating these young players. Otherwise, you're gonna lose like your top prospects in free agency. Like I think about Matthew Phillips, and maybe that's not the best comparison because he hasn't really transitioned well to the NHL, but he was your leading scorer 2-3 years in a row, never really got a crack at the NHL, and ended up going to Washington in free agency, and then to Pittsburgh, and then was reclaimed by Washington on waivers, and then they put him on waivers. Like he was going back and forth between Pittsburgh and DC. And I think you should, as an organization, be striving for consistency with these young players that you're looking to develop, especially someone as impactful and crucial and critical to the future of your organization as Zayne Parekh. So let's start working on plucking out some weeds, thinning out the garden a little bit, and planting the seeds of these young, exciting prospects. But that'll do it for me here on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic day. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at JustBelleMosto. And until tomorrow, stay safe, stay warm, stay cool, stay dry, stay hydrated, and just remember to be kind.